The sun recedes behind the colonial skyline. A different kind of light begins to bloom here, in the heart of old Chinatown. Red paper lanterns cast a soft, warm glow upon the narrow streets. They sway gently in the humid evening air. This is a world packed tightly into itself, a maze of shophouses and hidden courtyards. Each alleyway is a vein, alive with the pulse of 1,000 stories. The air itself is thick, a heavy blanket woven from the scents of cooking oil, incense, and the sweet decay of tropical fruit. One can almost taste the history here, a complex flavor of hope and hardship that is steeped into the very bricks and mortar of this place. We are standing on the threshold of a different Singapore. This is not the clean, orderly city of colonial administration. This is a place of raw, unfiltered life. The sounds are a constant overlapping chorus. A storyteller's gong clashes with the sharp clatter of mahjong tiles. The rhythmic chant of a street vendor selling noodles cuts through the murmur of a dozen dialects. Hokkien, Teochew, Cantonese, and Hakka voices all mingle, creating a rich tapestry of sound that is both chaotic and harmonious. It is a symphony of human endeavor. Here, every doorway seems to lead into another world. Behind a beaded curtain, a family shares its evening meal. Their shadows dance on the thin walls. Further down, a tailor works late into the night. The 5-footways offer shelter from both the blistering sun and sudden tropical downpours. They are communal spaces where life spills out from crowded interiors, a public stage for private lives. The streets of Chinatown are less like roads and more like rivers. They are channels for a constant flow of humanity. People are the lifeblood of this place. They move with a purpose born of necessity. A fortune teller sits patiently at his small table, his ancient eyes observing the endless stream of potential clients. A letter writer sits poised with his brush, a vital link for the illiterate masses. The markets are the epicenters of this activity. Baskets overflow with strange and wonderful produce. Live chickens squawk in their bamboo cages. The sharp, pungent smell of dried seafood mingles with the earthy aroma of medicinal herbs. Commerce spills out onto the pavement, creating a vibrant, informal economy. This is the essence of the hustle, the relentless drive to make a living, to carve out prosperity in a world that offers few guarantees. For many, the dream of a better life was carried on their shoulders. These were the coolies, the sinews of the colonial economy. Their days began before dawn and ended long after dusk. We see them everywhere, their bodies lean and hardened by relentless labor. A pikul was roughly 60 kilograms, the standard measure for a man's burden. They carried sacks of rice, bundles of rattan, and crates of merchandise. Their living conditions were as harsh as their work. They were housed in crowded tenements, in spaces known as cubicles. Tiny, windowless rooms separated by thin wooden partitions. Dozens of men would share a single shophouse floor. The air inside was stagnant, thick with the smell of sweat and unwashed bodies. Their diet was simple and meager, plain rice, perhaps with salted vegetables or dried fish, just enough fuel to power them through another day. Yet within this grim reality, small hopes flickered. The primary goal was to save money to send back to families in China. The dream was to return home as a man of some success. This distant hope was the invisible force that kept them going. The physical toll was immense. Their bodies were their only capital. They were the anonymous, disposable workforce that powered the engine of empire, the human price of progress, carrying Singapore's prosperity on their backs. Beyond the world of labor, there was another world, a world of escape. We enter a different kind of establishment, one hidden away from the main streets. The air here is heavy and sweet, with a cloying, unfamiliar scent. This is the smell of burning opium. The room is dark, lit only by the faint glow of small oil lamps. Men lie on wooden platforms, lost in a shared dream. An attendant moves silently through the gloom, preparing the opium, a sticky, dark paste, holding it over the lamp's flame. The ritual is slow, deliberate, and hypnotic. For those in its grip, this process was as much comfort as the drug itself. The patrons come from all walks of life. For the coolie, the pipe offered temporary reprieve from pain and exhaustion. But this comfort came at a terrible price. What began as pain management became the sole purpose of existence. Wages meant for families were spent on the next pipe. The dream of returning to China as a successful man evaporated in the smoke. The men here were chasing a phantom, a feeling of peace that only drew them deeper into poverty and despair. The opium den was a quiet, insidious predator, thriving on the very hardship it promised to alleviate. It was a sanctuary and a prison all in one. In a world with little official protection, people sought security elsewhere. Power did not always flow from the colonial government. It often grew from the ground up in the shadows. This was the domain of the secret societies, the triads. They were an invisible government, with their own laws, their own enforcers, and their own systems of tribute. Their presence was felt everywhere in Chinatown. They offered protection to those who paid for it and brought ruin to those who did not. They were both a source of order and a source of fear. These societies were structured like families. Members were bound by blood oaths and elaborate initiation rituals. Loyalty was absolute. Betrayal was punishable by death. They provided belonging and identity for new immigrants lost in a strange land. A new arrival could find work, lodging, and community through his society. They functioned as mutual aid organizations where the official state offered none. However, their influence had a much darker side. The triads controlled the vice trades. Opium dens, gambling houses, and brothels all operated under their protection, paying a portion of their profits for the privilege. Turf wars between rival societies were common, erupting into sudden, brutal clashes in the streets. These conflicts were a terrifying and unpredictable part of life, a constant reminder of the power operating beneath the surface. For the average person, navigating this landscape required delicate balance. One had to know which society controlled their street, to whom they should show respect, and which lines should never be crossed. They were a shadow authority, testament to the fact that power will always find a way to take root, whether in the light or in the darkness. The story of colonial Chinatown is one of profound struggle. It is a narrative written in sweat, in tears, and sometimes in blood. The forces arrayed against the individual were immense. There was the crushing toil of labor, the siren call of the opium pipe, and the ever-present threat of the secret societies. It was an environment that could easily break a person. The pressure was constant, a relentless test of human endurance. Many did not survive. Their stories are buried in unmarked graves, their dreams turned to dust. Yet this is not solely a story of victimhood, it is also a story of incredible resilience. To survive here, one had to be adaptable, resourceful, and endlessly determined. We see this spirit in the merchant who carefully balances his accounts, in the mother who works multiple jobs, even in the coolie who still holds on to hope. Life in all its forms pushed back against the darkness. This resilience is the most enduring legacy of Chinatown. It is the spirit of the bamboo which bends in the storm but does not break. The community developed its own support systems, its own forms of justice, and its own ways of celebrating life. Festivals were observed with great fervor, their noise and color a defiant act of cultural preservation. In the face of immense hardship, people found ways to create meaning, to maintain their dignity and to care for one another. Looking back at this complex, often brutal world, we see a powerful testament to the human spirit. The shadows were deep, but they could not extinguish the light. The people of Chinatown were not passive subjects of empire. They were active agents in their own stories, navigating a difficult world with courage and tenacity. Their legacy is not just in the buildings they constructed, but in the unbreakable spirit that still echoes through these streets today.